Recording button. Double tap to activate.
Hello, all my fiber artists, all my crafty and creative people. This is May. If you're new to my channel, hi. My name's May. I love yarn. I love to knit and crochet. Those are my hobbies. And I also happen to have been born visually impaired, legally blind. And so I happen to believe that knitting and crochet is something for everybody. You can do it tactily. So I'm here to encourage everyone to knit and crochet. I try to describe things on my channel for other visually impaired people. So a few weeks ago, I did a Whip Wednesday video where I was working on the Noble Crescent shawl. It is knit in Cascade Yarns, Noble Cotton. If you're blind or visually impaired, the color is called Sun Dried Tomato, and I have the shawl right here under the camera. Sun Dried Tomato is a nice red, not too orange. I did have to ask my sister for that help because I am colorblind. So this pattern is a free pattern on the Cascade Yarns website. It's really a fairly simple shawl, I'll be honest with you. I found the cast on a little bit confusing. We'll talk about that in another video. But overall, I think the pattern's well done. And so I am on my bind off now. And I thought, because I often share with you all that I knit tight, I crochet tight, I bind off tight, and that's a big problem for me. So I have learned the hard way about binding off too tight. I've literally knit an entire pair of like leg warmers, leggings, and then when I got to my bind off, guess what? I did it so tight, I literally couldn't get it over my ankle. And I had to rip out the entire leg warmer and do it again. Yeah, I've done socks so tight I can barely get them over my feet. I had someone give me a beautiful hand knit sweater that the sweater itself was big on me, but the bind off around the neck was so tight I could barely get it over my head. So, a lot of people have issues with tight bind offs, and that includes me. You just saw it on my beautiful lace weight mohair scarf. Gorgeous scarf. Took me months, and I did a 3-needle bind off, and I ended up doing it tight, so it's kind of bunchy in the middle. So on this particular shawl, it was really important to me to not bind off too tight. So one of the things that I like to do is to go up a needle size or 2 or 3 depending on the bind off technique that I'm going to use. If I was just going to do a standard bind off where you knit first stitch, you knit the second stitch, you pass the first stitch over the second stitch, I would probably go up like 3 or 4 needle sizes. That's how tightly I bind off. But for shawls, one of my favorite, because you want a shawl to be nice and drapey, right? You don't want it to be too tight. The thing is, if you bind off too tight, your fabric is really going to bunch up and it's not going to drape, it's not going to fit. If you bind off too loose, it will ruffle up, okay? But what I have found is that with a bind off that's too loose, that's ruffled, I can wet the item, I can wash it, I can block it, I can pin it out for a couple of days flat, and guess what? That ruffle will lay flat, okay? So I prefer to err on the side of too large when necessary, and then blocking the item if I have to. But this is a shawl, and I want it nice and loose and drapey on the bind off. But I also, this particular shawl, I don't really want it to ruffle. I do want it to lay flat. I think this pattern ended up with 301 stitches on the pattern as written, but you know me, I'm not very good at following directions, right? So I ended up with well over 320 stitches to bind off. Now, this shawl is on a circular needle, right? It's a interchangeable needle set. It happens to be from Knit Picks, okay? But any circular needle set will do. I think it's a 47-inch cable because there was over 300 stitches. This is a US size 7 or 4.5 millimeter needle. Now, I am not going to do a traditional bind off. One of my favorite bind offs for a shawl is to knit the first stitch and then knit the second stitch and then knit those 2 stitches together through the back loop, okay? And that gives you so much more stretch in your bind off. Now, because I do still stitch tight, knit tight, bind off tight, everything, I did go ahead and instead of using the other end, right, of my interchangeable needle where my 4.5 millimeter needle is, I went ahead, tapped into that interchangeable set and got out a US size 8 or 5 millimeter needle. So that's what we're using for our working needle to bind off. Now I am almost to the end of this bind off before I decided I should make a little video on tips for binding off. And so we're not starting at the beginning. So I do already have, right? I have a stitch on, I put it back on my left hand needle, but this would be the last stitch that I bound off. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on my right hand needle. Okay. Let me see if I can zoom this in for you a little bit more.
Zoom to button. Zoom
okay.
to selected.
Sorry. See if I can stabilize that a little bit more so it's not bouncing. I'm so sorry about that. Hope that didn't make anybody sick. Okay. So I now have the last bound off stitch on the right hand needle, my 5 millimeter, and then I've got all the rest of my stitches still on my US size 7, 4.5 millimeter. So I'm going to take my right hand needle. I'm going to go into the first stitch on the project on the left hand needle. I'm going to go into it from the front, right? Front to back, just like normal. I'm going to yarn over that needle and I'm going to work that stitch just like normal. 2 stitches on the right hand needle. We're going to push that stitch off the needle. We got 2 stitches on the right hand needle. And now I'm going to go ahead and stick that left hand needle into those stitches so that I can transfer them back to the left hand needle, right? So the 2 stitches that I had on my right hand needle are now back on my left hand needle, right there on the end. And now I'm going to take my right hand needle and I'm going to go into the backs, right? You see how you got your front loops just like with crochet has a front loop and a back loop. With knitting, you also, this front side that's facing you is called the front, into the front loop, okay? And into the back, on the opposite side of your needle, that's called the back loop of your stitch. So I'm going to take my right hand needle and I'm going to stick it into the back of those 2 stitches together. I'm going to knit them like normal, just 2 together through the back loop. Okay, those 2 stitches are going to come off. Now that I got a new stitch on my right hand needle, one new stitch, add a 2. I'm going to take those 2 off the left hand needle. Those 2 stitches just became 1. Let's do it a few more times. The last worked stitch that I just bound off is now on my right hand needle. Right hand needle goes into the stitch on the end of my left hand needle. It goes into the front loop. We're going to knit it just like normal, right? So the needle goes in from the front to the back of the work. We're going to yarn over. We're going to work that stitch, 2 stitches on the right hand needle, push that stitch off of the left hand needle, 2 stitches. I'm going to stick the left needle into those 2 stitches that I just had on my right hand needle. We're going to transfer them back to the left hand needle, okay? And now we take the right hand needle and we stick it into the back loops of those 2 stitches. We are going to, this is what's called knit 2 together through the back loop. We are knitting 2 stitches together as one through the back loop. 2 stitches become 1. 1 stitch on the right hand needle. Take those 2 work stitches off the left hand needle. Let's do it a few more times. Right needle goes into the next stitch on the left hand needle. It goes from the front to the back. We are just going to knit it as normal. Yarn over the needle, pull that new stitch up, 2 stitches on the right hand needle. Push that work stitch off the left hand needle. 2 stitches on the right needle. We're going to take our left needle tip. We're going to stick it into the front loops of those 2 stitches that we just did so that we can transfer them back onto the left hand needle. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull that right needle out just so you can see what I'm talking about real clearly, how to knit two together through the back loop. If you're practiced at it, you can work those two together without having to take that right hand needle out, okay? But I just want to be really clear so that people can see what I'm talking about the back loop. That's why I'm transferring them back to the left hand needle, but you don't have to do that. You can work them right off the right needle there. But we've got those two stitches have been transferred back to the left hand needle. We're going to stick the right needle into the back loops of both stitches. We're going to yarn over our needle and work two stitches through the back loop, become one. Those stitches are worked. We can take them off the left hand needle. One stitch on the right hand needle. We're going to go into the stitch front to back. We're going to yarn over, work that stitch, two stitches on the right hand needle. We're going to take our left needle tip and stick it into those two stitches in the front, right? This is what I'm talking about. You can yarn over, and in theory, you can work those just like that. You see how I did that? And you can work those two together through the back loop without having to transfer them back. I was just wanting to be really clear when I showed people about how to work into the back of the loop. But now again, those two have become one, and we're going to take that off the left hand needle, one stitch on the right hand needle. So I'll show you that little method one more time. Right hand needle goes into the stitch front to back. We knit like normal, yarn over, two stitches on the right hand needle, push the old stitch off. Okay, now we can take the tip of our left hand needle, stick it through the front loops of the two stitches just worked, so that you see why we're talking about knit two together through the back loop, because it's the right needle that's your working needle. So that's the needle that's working them through the back loop. I don't want that to be confusing to people. That's why I didn't show that initially, because some people get confused then because the left needle is now into the front loops. It's the right needle that's the working needle. So that's the one that is working two stitches together through the back loop. You yarn over those two stitches, you make two into one stitch on the right hand needle. I will show you that method one more time. I just didn't want people to get too confused at why we're calling it knit two together through the back loop. Okay. Okay, one stitch on the right hand needle. Right hand needle goes into the stitch front to back, yarn over, knit like normal, two stitches on the right hand needle, push the work stitch off. Tip of the left needle now can go into the front of the two stitches on the right hand needle, so that the working needle, the right hand needle, is in the back loops of those two stitches. Yarn over and knit those two together through the back loop. Two stitches become one. I'll go back and I'll show you that first method one more time. Right needle goes into the stitch front to back, work it as normal, two stitches on the right hand needle. You can stick your left hand needle into the front loops of both of those stitches. If you're having difficulties with this, because sometimes when you work this method without repositioning the back needle, you can lose a stitch. So that is a good way to begin, is to just pull that right hand needle out, is to transfer the two work stitches back to the left hand needle, pull the right needle out, and reposition it so that you're sure where you're at, where all your strands are at. So this is where you get the name of the stitch, work two together through the back loop. The working needle, the right hand needle, goes into those two stitches through the back loop. Sorry. Your camera knitter does not have depth perception. If you don't know that, I don't have depth perception. I can't see how far away my work is from me or anything like that. So we're going to yarn over. We're going to work those two stitches together as one. Knit them two together through the back loop. One stitch on the right hand needle. Right hand needle goes in to the stitch. Yarn over. work it as normal. 2 stitches on the right hand needle. You stick the tip of the left hand needle into those 2 stitches through the front loops. You transfer them back to the left hand needle. Okay, you can take that right needle out, reposition it, especially if it's your first time doing knit 2 together through the back loop. You might want to do it this way to begin with until you get really comfortable with it and you know where your needle's at. So we're going to take the tip of our right hand needle. We're going to go into the back loops. I'll tip that up so you can see if you have some sight. We're going to go into the back loops of both of those stitches. We are going to yarn over and then pull up a new stitch, 1 stitch on the right hand needle. Take those 2 stitches off the left hand needle. That's how to knit 2 together through the back loop. Okay, well, I am going to pause the camera here and finish my bind off. I'll be right back.
Pause.
Okay, well, I was going to finish binding off this whole shawl so that y'all could see it as a finished object, but you know what? There's a lot of shawl, a lot of stitches on this shawl to work still, but you can see it along the edge of this shawl. I'm really happy. I talk a lot on my videos about how I bound off too tight. I bound off too tight. You'll hear that over and over, right? Well, this shawl, I got it just right. I'm really happy with my choice to go up 1 needle size and then use the knit 1, knit 2 together through the back loop. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm sure that this bind off method has a name, right? I'm sure it does, but I don't know the name. I'm just going to tell you that there are multiple ways to bind off in knitting, right? And you have to find out what method works best for you, your project, right? How loose or tight do you want the bind off on that particular project? Is it a sleeve? Is it a neck hole? Is it a sock? Is it a shawl that you want loose and drapey? What's your project? What's your gauge? What's your own personal tension? My issue is my tension's tight. So you're going to have to find the bind off method that works best for you and your project and your tension. For me, I'm super happy with the choice to go up 1 needle size to the 5 milli and to do knit 1, knit 2 together through the back loop. It's definitely a stretchier bind off, right? You can tell that there is stretch in this, and I'm liking that. I've done some bind offs with traditional bind off methods, and the knit 1, knit the 2nd stitch, pass the 1st stitch over, and there just isn't enough stretch for my personal preference. So this is a stretchy bind off. Don't know what it's called beyond stretchy bind off, but I hope that this is helpful to somebody out there who might be dealing with some of the same issues that I do. I think this is an excellent bind off for shawls and skirts. Okay, well, if you want to see this particular Noble Crescent shawl completed, look for it on my channel you can see it in process. I'm working on it in a Whip Wednesday video. In July, I believe it was my July 9th Whip Wednesday video. And then you'll see it as a Finish It Friday video. You'll see, I don't know the particular number or anything like that, but look for Finish It Friday Noble Crescent shawl and you will see this shawl as a finished object. Okay, well, I hope that this was helpful for somebody, and as always, my friends, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, bye-bye. Happy stitching.